Welcome to this short video where we will have a look at the log QC tool that comes with the Blueback Wells Toolbox. Very often we have issues with logs in Petrel. We can have logs with abnormal values for various reasons. We can have logs imported into a global well log template with the wrong unit values, and we can have logs defined in wells but there are actually no values in those defined well logs. For many of these issues, we can use the log QC tool to identify the individual logs, and we can either correct the issue or we can delete the logs. Let's have a look at a few examples in Petrel. Alright, here I have my Petrel project with more than 4,000 wells. The first example that we are going to look at is the porosity log that I've brought up here in the Well Data Viewer, the Global Well Logs tab. We see that the template for this porosity log is porosity. The unit is fraction. The log is identified in more than 4,000 wells, and the range of this porosity log is from 0.02 to 36.7, and this range does not fit well with the unit being fraction. So what is going on here? What is the issue? We can just make guesses from this information here, but to help us figure out what the issue is, we can open up log QC tool, and here we will select the porosity log. Sits here. It immediately again tells us the template is porosity, the unit is fraction. We can bring up the Petrel template here from this shortcut if we want to. Then we will select all the wells that has the porosity log, and now the tool is doing the statistical extraction per porosity log per well, and from that table that is populated pretty soon we can go in and look at what is going on. So here you see we've got the well name, UWI, the log name, and then some statistics. We've got the minimum and the maximum value. The mean value is the standard deviation, and minimum and maximum measured depth. We can sort on these parameters, and immediately when we sort on the minimum here, that we can start to see that we have some issues. These values here, min, max, mean, and standard deviation, does not correspond well with the unit fraction. So we can go in and run some identifiers on some of these statistical extraction. We can, for example, go in and tell the tool to show us all the logs that has a max value above 2. We'll highlight those wells. That is 65 wells out of the 4,000 wells, and we can bring those 65 wells to the top of my list like this, and we can go in and see, yes, alright, all of these 65 wells has a range that does not correspond with fraction. And to further investigate this, we can bring those 65 wells up in a Petrel well section window using this shortcut button here. I'll just push these menus aside so we can have a look at it. And from this well section window, it looks like the issue is that some of the porosity logs have been imported into a fractions template using percentage values. So we could go back to the well log QC, and we could either delete those logs and import them from scratch, but since this issue here is relatively simple, we can also apply some simple math directly from the tool. So we can go in and divide the porosity log in those 65 wells by 100. We'll correct, and yes, we want to perform this correction, and immediately we look at the statistics here, and it looks a lot more like fraction. And we can also confirm that by looking at the logs here. Now these logs has been brought back into the fraction space. And again, if we look at the statistics in the Well Data Viewer, we'll just refresh the log count here. Now we can see that we've taken care of this abnormal data range that did not correspond well with fractions. Another issue that can be quite annoying in standard Petrel are logs that are defined in wells, but when we start to work with those logs, we discovered that these logs are undefined. So That could be the case here. We are looking at the active one-way time log for the time depth relationship, and we think that we have this information in a lot of wells, but when we start to work with it, we discover that some of the logs are empty, like in this case. So we're looking at well 3800 here, this one here. The one-way time log is defined in the well, but when we open the statistics for this one-way time log, we see, all right, that's empty, and we start wondering, okay, how many wells do I have with this issue? So we can go back to the log QC. We can select the one-way time log. We will select the log in all the wells where it's present, and see most of these logs actually have values, but we know that some of them don't, so we can use this simple button here and say highlight wells with undefined logs, and we now see that 158 out of those 833 logs with one-way time log has values that are undefined. We can then again bring those to the top of my list, and in this case there's no way to correct this, so we just like to delete it. So we will use the delete button here. We'll delete those 158 logs like this, and now you see it's gone. It's no longer defined in the well, and then we can continue doing the velocity analysis with defined data. So this log QC tool is very useful to identify issues in well logs. I hope you find this tool useful. Thank you very much.